So on September 17th, we're finally able to bring Father Unknown to Woodland Park for a one-time screening of this true story that was recorded as it happened. It's a story about my father and I. So I'm David Quint. I'm the filmmaker of Father Unknown, and this is my dad, Urban Quint.
Okay, would you mind just giving a background of the film and just kind of say why you're here and just kind of let people know you reached out to me for this, so you could just kind of explain to everybody
Sure.
why you did that.
Sure. Back in 1942, my father, Urban, was born in Switzerland, and he grew up in an orphanage that was a 700-year-old castle. And he barely went to school during that time. He didn't know how old he was until somebody told him later on what his age was. And so he lived his life in this orphanage with these other children. And when he was 12 years old, he got a letter from a place that he had never heard of, which was the United States of America. And the letter said, "You are not an orphan, I'm your mother. And you are going to come to America now and live with me." So this 12-year-old boy who'd never left Switzerland, didn't speak any English, had never seen an airplane, flew by himself to the other side of the world where he met his mother for the very first time. And his mother had married a man who became his stepfather. So it was a difficult adjustment for him because he didn't speak English. He was in Philadelphia instead of Switzerland. And because he had lived for so many years in an institution, in an orphanage, he was really unfamiliar with living with a family, with living with other people, even though this was his mother. So he was kind of an orphan, and then he wasn't an orphan. So a while after they're living together, he says to his mother, "Well, if you're my mother, and this man is not my father, then who is my real father?" And she said, "Don't ever ask that question again. I will never tell you." And so my dad lived for the rest of his life and the rest of her life not knowing who his father was, always wanting to know, but the subject was never talked about. So many, many years later, his mother and stepfather passed away, and I was in my late 30s, and I was really starting to think about the distance that he had had in his relationship with his mother and father, how difficult that had been. They didn't seem close. And at the same time, I was thinking about how something really similar had happened between him and I, how distant our relationship was. And I couldn't stop thinking about this early story of him being at this orphanage and the impact that it seemed like that had had on him. So I sent an email. I found this orphanage online in Switzerland, and it's still there today. And I sent an email to them, hoping, desperately hoping they would have the answers that I was looking for and that I thought he was looking for. They emailed me back and said that they were no longer an orphanage, and they had only a few records from when he had been there as a child, but that they had found a list of names and his name was on it. And that another man who was about 70 years old, who had also lived at this orphanage when he was a boy, wanted to make contact. So my dad remembered this man from when they were boys, when they slept in the bed next to each other in this orphanage. So that's when we decided as a father and son to take a trip back to Switzerland to go see this orphanage. And I recorded the whole thing on my iPhone, which was never intended to be a film at all. It was really intended, I think, to kind of document the only attempt our family had ever made to try and figure out this story. But what ended up happening on this 10-day trip in front of my phone was incredible. And one thing after another in this mystery that had existed for 55 years began to unlock and unfold in front of us. And by the end of that trip, we were standing on the doorstep of living, breathing blood relatives that we never knew existed. And it completely changed our lives. I don't know how else to say it. It profoundly changed our lives.
Yeah.
And so that story and the recordings that I had made on my phone became a film. And the film is called Father Unknown. And we've been traveling around the country to film festivals and other screening events, sharing this really emotional, heartwarming father-son story with audiences, and hosting audience conversations afterwards.
Supposedly there's some connection with your family to Woodland Park and in particular the Swiss LA. Will you explain that?
Yeah, do you want to explain that?
Well, we lived in Philadelphia I came over in 1954, and we would take trips out to the west, and obviously once or twice we came to Colorado. We come up US 24, and there's a sign right out here. It says 5 acres for sale, and my mom sees that and says, this is where I want to live. Because we lived in Philadelphia, nothing like this at all, where you have all these rows of houses and heat and humidity, and it's just so beautiful here to have Pikes Peak right here. Certain times of the year you got snow on it. It's fantastic. My stepfather's father had a little bit of money where they could put it down, and they were real happy to be here in Woodland Park. Absolutely loved it here. Never even dreamed about going anywhere else. This is where they wanted to be. And they finally, when they passed away, it was here in Woodland Park, you know. So we built that house first, and I do remember doing lots of the work at the house for them. Like I built the fireplace, and I'm not a mason at all, but I somehow figured out how to do it. The septic tank, I dug it all by hand. I mean, I can go on and on and on. But years later, she worked at a restaurant in Woodland Park. The lady's name was Hattie, and I just know she worked there. I think eventually she was able to do some cooking and so. And then later on, she worked down in Chipeta Gardens, worked as a helper and cook in the kitchen. She finally said, well, I might as well open my own restaurant. So they bought the lot next to it, next to the house. And I remember my stepdad getting a book, a chalet book. He looked at that, and you know, it wasn't discussed, but he obviously figured out how to take a chalet and turn it into a restaurant. And we bought the wood from Salida. I remember all these things. And stepdad and I, these are nothing more like Lincoln logs, just real long. You just cut it. If you don't want a window, just don't put a little section of wood there. And now the roofing and the flooring, we had that done. But my stepdad was very, he could do a lot of things, so he did his own plumbing. He was an electrician by trade. So they absolutely loved it here and built a wonderful restaurant, which I helped for quite a few years. And to add a little bit of interesting news, this is where my wife was a waitress, and eventually, you know, so yeah, that's the story.
So do you know when they built the Swiss Chalet, when they opened the
Well,
restaurant?
it opened in 1962.
Okay.
In 1962, and I can't tell you whether it took 1 year or 2 years. It was a pretty slow process, you know, building this. I remember helping with the. I mean, we had a cement mixer. That's how we did the floor. Well, that's you know, today you get a cement truck in. I mean, that mixer just went non-stop, you know. So, yeah, very interesting.
You too.
Put a smile on my face.
And your wife just
She told me.
yeah.
She told me.
She saw a
called me.
little question mark on Urban, and but I was reading the little label because I knew someone from the Woodland Park newspaper was coming. So, and by the time she says, "I'm Neil's wife," and I says, "Okay." So anyway, that was the misunderstanding there.
Well, looking forward to the 17th.
Okay,
We are too.
thank you so much.
We are too.
Unfortunately, I got to run. You're
Yeah.
in good hands with these two.
We know it.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank
Neil.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
So it was. So they built the restaurant in 1962. They established it as a Swiss Chalet, as a restaurant, and it stayed the same business and same owner since your parents, correct?
Well, actually, no. They actually sold it to another Swiss person eventually, and he had it for a while. And I don't know. From there, I don't know what happened. You know, but the sign obviously was written all in Swiss, Schweizer Alpe Restaurant. Now it says Swiss Chalet Restaurant. But the words on the front of the restaurant, those are all still, they're all written in German. God bless those to come in and out. And all the little hearts, yes, I cut all those out with a little scroll saw. Yeah, I can just go, you know.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So how much has the restaurant changed since?
Well, obviously their menu has changed. They're going to need to cater to what people are asking, and because they would sell the Wiener Schnitzel, breaded veal cutlet. They would sell the sauerbraten, that's a roast that's marinated in red wine and then baked and all this and that. She had various desserts that they don't do today.
So it was kind of like original Swiss food.
It was, well, and they did
More
have
so
some.
than it
They
is.
did have some American, like trout and chicken, but she did not serve hamburgers. And once in a while, she would serve domesticated rabbit. The bread man was. Let's see if I remember. I can't remember the bread man, but he was the. I remember his name, but he lived in near Divide, and this was his route. Meadow Gold would always stop by here and drop off. You know, I could name almost all the companies that brought their produce and things like that. So domesticated rabbit, yeah.
So how long did you live here? Were you a part of the Swiss Chalet?
Well, let's see. Some of that's going to be. Let's see. So I attended school at Manitou Springs, I was there. I attended school there for my senior year, and that's it. So, but I know that we lived. When we first came, we actually lived in a rental in Woodland Park. Father Kavanaugh, was the priest of the Catholic Church at that time. We stayed in his cabin, and then afterwards we tried to find our own place and stuff like that. So I don't know how many years. I can't remember some of that. Obviously, when we helped build, he built that house first. So I'm trying to figure out. I graduated in '61. Feels like we came in '58 or '59.
That makes sense.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the restaurant was finished in '62.
Yeah.
And then you went to junior college.
Then I went to junior college, Otero in La Junta, yes. For 2 years there.
So, why did you decide to bring the screening to Woodland Park?
Well, it's in many ways it's a hometown for my father, and the Swiss Chalet is a really meaningful place for us. It's a place that his parents and my grandparents built as their effort to chase the American dream, and really they were able to do that here. And so we've been fortunate to have a great relationship with Neil and his family, the owners of the Swiss Chalet today. And we've always wanted to bring the story back here because a lot of people know the chalet. People all over Colorado know the Swiss Chalet, but they don't know kind of the story behind my father's childhood and really how did this Swiss Chalet end up in the middle of the mountains of Colorado. So we're excited to finally bring the film here, and it's a very heartwarming, compelling human story that we think everybody can connect to, and we love sharing it with people.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and show times. What time is it?
So Father Unknown shows on September 17th at 11 a.m. at the Gold Hill Theaters here in Woodland Park. And the film is about 70 minutes long, and afterward my dad and I will be here in person hosting an audience conversation. And
here at the Swiss Chalet?
Actually at the Gold Hill Theater. So right in the theater after the film, we'll host an audience conversation, and that is not to be missed. It's just an incredible. It usually lasts about 40 minutes. So the audience conversation afterwards is always fascinating because Father Unknown is a story that seems to be something that so many people can connect to in terms of their own family experience, whether it's being an adoptee or the relationship between fathers and sons or family secrets. It just seems to be a story that a lot of people can relate to.
So if for some reason they miss a screening, is there other screenings that you're doing nearby, or is there a way to purchase a movie, or is there, like, if people are going to be out of town that day and they're really interested in it?
Yeah.
Or other ways they could.
So the film is available to rent or download, or you can even purchase a DVD directly from our website, which is fatherunknown.com. And also on our website, we have a running list of upcoming screenings, and the screenings are growing. We've been to New York and Scottsdale and Omaha and Martha's Vineyard and Denver 3 or 4 times. We really have been evergreen. Woodland Park soon. So it's a great place to check back because there's always new theatrical screenings that are getting added to that list.
What are some of supposedly it was an award-winning film. Can you talk about some of the awards that the film has won so far?
So we won the Audience Choice Award, which is the main award at the Lifetree Film Festival, which happens in Loveland every year. And that's a festival where the audience votes, so it's voted on by the people in the audience. And that's something we've seen a lot, is that just the average person, you don't have to be a film professor or a cinephile or somebody who loves obscure foreign documentaries. It's a film that everybody can connect to. We also won an award at the Omaha Film Festival. Was that a year ago? I think a year ago.
When did this movie come out? When did you?
We world premiered the film in November of 2014 at the Stars Denver Film Festival, and then in 2015 and 16 have done a number of festivals, as well as groups that have brought the film to their local community. And it's really different than a typical Hollywood release, where it's released on a single day and there's a lot of PR done to promote that film, and the first 2 weeks of that release are really critical. This is the opposite. We've been picking up steam with this story because it's so universal and it's timeless that I think we'll be doing this for quite a while into the future, traveling and sharing the story. So
are you, Mark? Are you happy about the response from the film? Are you surprised? Did you think it had more people liked it? Has it got a better response than what you had intended or what you thought when you made it? Worse or?
It's such a hard question to answer because I never thought it would make a film. I'm a filmmaker by trade, but I never thought this painful story between us would become a film, and that sharing kind of the intimate experience that he and I had as father and son would resonate with so many people. So I'm always surprised by that response from people, because it was not something I ever planned on doing. If somebody had said to me when I was 16 and a pretty rebellious teenager and we barely talked, that someday I would grow up and make a heartwarming father-son movie. Oh, and by the way, it'll be about my father and me. I would have said there's no way. So it's a huge surprise.
So do you think this whole experience has brought you two together as your father-son relationship?
There's no words to describe what our lives have been transformed, and that's why we both are happy and more than willing to want to share this movie, because it can do so much. We've already seen wonderful things happen, given lots of people or individuals courage to go ahead and pursue. Perhaps it's okay to go ahead and find who is their father or who is their mother. And because some people, they just want to be content with and have these, if it wasn't for this film, I don't know. I mean, I'm so grateful for what has happened. And then my son got to go on the journey with me. I don't know if I could have done it by myself. And how we're like this now. We were like this, way apart. And that's not normal. And there's a lot of that happening, so we're excited to show Father Unknown. We really are.
Was there a particular scene or a particular spot in time that was more powerful to you individually?
Yeah. to this day, this probably means the most to me when my son said, while he helped me find my father, he found his father. And I'll tell you what,
It gives me chills.
that's
amazing.
I will.
It is amazing.
Those words will resonate for
Yeah.
a long time for me, and so that's why I keep saying we want to share. And if some people can hear that, there's probably lots of sons, fathers, daughters, mothers that are not harmonious together, and they could be. So we're so blessed that this happened. Yeah.
Well, David, you're a father too, correct?
Right, I am. I have 3 children.
So do you think this whole experience has helped not only you build a better relationship with your own father, but be a better father as well?
I think so. I think, all of us, everybody on the face of the earth was a child and had parents at some point in their lives. And oftentimes I think it's very normal to wonder, why are our parents the way they are? And it's, when you're younger, it's hard to understand what adult life is all about. It's hard to understand the trials and tribulations that have impacted our parents can affect the way our parents are to us. And so one of the really important facets of this story is that in seeing the way my dad's childhood impacted him and the way that impacted me, it did make me start to think about, well, how has that impacted the way I've been a father to my children? And so, you can't change your life in one day, but you can start to think about these things and slowly steer the boat in a better direction. Really, believe me, if anything ever seemed like it was too late, it seemed like it was too late that the mystery behind his origins would ever be solved. Right. Because we thought that secret had gone to the grave with his mother.
His mom, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so that seemed like it was too late. I don't know if it seemed too late that our relationship would change, but it seemed impossible. Yeah. And here we are, both of those things changed. I can't remember if I mentioned this, but we end up on the doorstep. After we go to this orphanage, this crazy series of events unfolds, and we end up on the doorstep of living, breathing blood relatives that we never knew existed. And I got to see my own father see a picture of his father for the very first time. And it happened right in front of me. The thing that's encouraging is what people say after they see it. So it really, just to see the impact it makes on the people in the audience is enough to keep us doing it, because it's
and if
so
you
meaningful.
can see it on the big screen, it's gonna obviously you know that it'll be better than on a laptop.
Oh, of course.
So we spent 6 years working on the editing of that film. Primarily, there's actually a number of reasons. One is, if you don't know you're making a movie, you don't do a lot of things that you need to tell a story. And so we really had our hands full with how do we use only what was recorded to tell this story, because when you see it, it's raw and real. It's not. There's no retake or say that again. It's 100% real.
Yeah.
And so that was very challenging. And then we did a lot of image stabilization, because it's just me holding this camera, and so there's a lot of technical work behind the scenes that you don't even realize happened, because
Wow.
And no sound, man. No wireless mics.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, the little mic. So it's,
And in the evening, download on your laptop because it was only so big, 16 gigs.
right.
And,
So
yeah.
it's, I'll never, ever, ever do that again.
Well,
You know, I'll never have the opportunity. But
Right.
it part of the, I think in a lot of ways, part of the appeal of the film is that it looks like what it is, which is a father and son going on a trip recorded on an iPhone with the son.
Question: is there a certain scene certain part of the movie, certain part of the process that is especially stuck out to you emotionally?
Oh, wow.
I'm going to jump in. Usually I don't do that. I can't leave out when I see my father for the first time.
Oh.
I mean, every child wants to know who their father and mother is. And if you've heard about, you know you have somebody, but to see a picture,
It's a profound experience. I think probably boiling it down to one moment, I would say it is the moment when my dad's brother, that he never knew existed, hands him a photo of their father, and I'm standing there watching that happen. It's like somebody took reality and just crumpled it up and threw it away, and a new reality appeared. It just, it probably because it's like everything went through this incredible funnel in a single moment. It changed everything. And we may actually live stream
that would be.
the audience conversation, because
We should give a link to that.
maybe you guys could link to it, or
Yeah.
there's a lot of possibilities with that especially that conversation, because you'll get grown men in the audience that say things like you guys are talking about, or have their own story. It's okay.
See you guys.
Auf Wiedersehen.
thank you. Auf Wiedersehen. That's goodbye in Swiss.
Yeah. Well, good. That's a good way to end it.
Thanks, you guys.
Say that again. Guten Glagger?
Auf Wiedersehen. Oh, we were on all this time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I don't miss a thing.
Oh.
Well, thank you guys
Okay,
once
yeah.
again.
Thanks
okay?
very
Thank
much.
you much. And they were real happy to be here in Woodland Park. Absolutely loved it here. Never even dreamed about going anywhere else. This is where they wanted to be.